So Suhas, over the last 1 year, you've been doing a bunch of these immersive treks in the Bay Area, right? Um, Talk to me about them. Why are you doing these? What have been some of your high-level observations during these trips?
200%. I think two main reasons. One, I think my first trip last year was long pending. It's something that I've wanted to do forever. Growing up here in India, you feel the valley is at least a destination you want to go once, see all the cool stuff that's happening, right? So that's something that I always wanted to do. Second, I'm currently splitting time between building and the productivity space. And productivity is a category. All my current paying users are mostly from the other side, mostly from the West. um, Second, I know a lot of VCs are spending lots of time for their portfolio building corridors between two continents. One where you see a lot more building activity, one where you see building as well as a lot more buying activity. Right, North America is probably globally the largest software buyer. So if you are building a B2B SaaS product, you have to be there today or tomorrow. Um, on one side, I think productivity led me there. But I realized that outside of the venture ecosystem, it is very, very necessary for community builders like us to bridge ecosystems. And one point led to the other. I think today, one of my co founders in the community is based out of Berlin. I'm shuttling between the Bay Area and Bangalore. So just like we were jamming, I think this triangle, not just this corridor, but this triangle is going to be very important in the coming years. And we feel we can play a small part for the larger ecosystem, just a very small part, helping founders, helping operators who are exploring these ecosystems and just create bridges between these. So Bangalore, Berlin, and Bay Area is where we think we want to spend a little bit more time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I love the fact that you have converted the corridor into a triangle. So
Right.
yeah. So I'm going to carry that thought with me. Any high level observations? I know we'll get into the details of product management and startups and what founders are doing in each of the ecosystems. But any kind of top three high level observations just over the last 1 year?
I think number one, especially, I'll be more contextual to the lens that I've been seeing it. There are certain categories which haven't yet opened up in India, which I feel there is a paying market outside India. So I think that is something a lot of builders need to start taking cognizance of. It is easier to get started here. Most buyers, right? We have our networks here. We know a lot of people. We feel we can get early acceleration in India, and even I've been through that journey, right? So all of us get started here, but you'd realize that the market, if you really want to build a business out of it, your market is probably much larger outside, where the buyer persona is slightly different, or sometimes maybe very different, right? So if you have the opportunity to get started in a market like that already, you'll definitely save some time. That is number one. Second, my observation was that US as a market is definitely a lot more mature. This I'd say from just interacting with a lot more senior operators. And second, also, if you just compare pure today, I think most products that you see coming out have a layer of AI. Numbers wise, in the last quarter, and this is I'm quoting an article from Economics Times. In the last quarter, almost $27 billion was invested in AI startups just in the Valley. Versus this number, if you want to take a guess, in India was just $8 million. Of course, I know there are deals happening that that I know, but these aren't public, right? So I'm just sharing the data that's probably available in the public, and you see that this disparity shows in the ecosystem, right? Of course, there are lots of energy, lots of good builders here as well, but the entire ecosystem needs to come together at the right time. And if that support doesn't come through, it's going to be very, very difficult, right? Like we can keep saying in India that okay, hey, we don't have a foundational layer, for example, right? We don't have an infra layer. We are only an applications play. Maybe that's true, no doubt about it. But then I think we're just going to be playing two very different games. And just like the cloud era, is this something that we want to miss out on? Is the bigger question here, right? So I think these are two main learnings that I've had, and I'm also trying to index and try building more on these, right? So the first point was very directly to what we're building at Indistractable. We're trying to spend more time in a market that is paying us, trying to build more products for them. And the second point then ties up more into the community that, hey, while capital is one thing, what else is missing? Can we go double down, help the ecosystem in our small ways, right? I'm not sure how much of a needle we can move, but we're hoping in the long term, more bridges, more help for founders beyond capital is something that we can bring to the table.
Yeah, no, two very interesting observations. I think the first one, it reminds me of two podcasts that I recently recorded. One was with Rajan, who runs Upekha, which is kind of a cross-border US India cross-border accelerator, and then last one was with Vinod Muthukrishnan of erstwhile Uniphore. I think he's just joined. He's come back to Cisco now,
Yeah.
and both of them said the same thing that look, you got to as a 0 to 1 founder start, or at least attempt to start in the market where your customer is, right? And then we have seen enough cases. I've seen that as an investor as well, that if you end up spending too much of time building for a different ICP, which is usually kind of the local ICP in India, it can actually send your product roadmap down a completely different direction. And you
Yeah.
actually then land up in the US, let's say 12 to 24 months down the road, and you're like, man, I'm an idea stage company here. Because
Yeah.
as you said, the customer here is much more mature and the requirements are so different.
Exactly, exactly. And both the individuals that you mentioned, I think in their small ways, both are playing a very integral role in bridging this gap, right? I think everyone needs to step up and everyone needs to. There's lots more to do in this corridor, just from. And yeah, I think you've got two great individuals before this who've been there, done that at scale, right?
Yeah. I think the AI part is also it's very interesting, right? I mean, I think obviously, as I mean, both of us know, right? Like all these big dollars are going in because I mean, the rightfully so. I think Silicon Valley and the US overall is typically the leader in terms of capex build out, right? Like all the dollars are going in to build out all this infrastructure on semiconductors, chips, and then going on to kind of the infrastructure level software and then applications. I think, and as you said, I think and this is again something that we discussed in the earlier, AI for India podcast, where we netted out that look, it's unlikely or it's low probability that Indian startups will be able to take a lead on the infra side, on the platform side, but applications is definitely something that lends itself well to the innate strengths of Indian founders. I think there is now kind of we have more than a decade of precedence now in terms of Indian founders being able to go deep into vertical SaaS, sort of take areas, go deep into them, and really kind of leverage whatever capabilities are out there to solve problems for customers and provide great customer support. I think what keeps me up at night is that typically every wave, the real value gets created by narrative violations.
Yeah.
So we all are obviously thinking in this direction. It's almost like a consensus view. And then
Yeah.
suddenly out of nowhere, I will not be surprised if in the next 5 to 7 years, some Indian founder comes out and builds some sort of a localized infrastructure play. And that's where all the value ends up getting created. So that's what's keeping me up at night as an investor.
Yeah, no, that'll be very interesting. My only hunch, right? Again, since we are making slight predictions on where we're going, I still feel maybe it would be an Indian founder. Might be an Indian team, but definitely having one co-founder in the valley, it is
Yeah.
almost impossible for us to build this completely from India.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you're taking a 5 to 7 year horizon, um, things could be very different then, right? I think the pace at which things are changing is something that is very surprising. So I'm failing to even look forward 7 years. November 2022 was when ChatGPT launched, right? We're not even 2 years into this, and
Yeah.
just imagine the number of products that have come out, and on top of this that are doing good revenue, right? So yeah, 2 years. If you're taking a 7 year timeline, that's 4x the amount of time that is just passed. So yeah, just think of four other cycles like this if you're thinking of just November 2022 to today. So it should be very interesting. I think acceleration is something that is very hard to foresee. Things just go past you, and you know I think these cycles are just going to increase the speed at which you can build out prototypes, build out products today. And since we mentioned application, especially on that layer, I think the speed at which you can iterate today has definitely gone much faster. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how these models play out, business models play out. But speed of execution of building products has definitely got faster.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to round up that point, I think just interacting with a lot of even Valley VCs and founders, I think Eric Schmidt recently gave a talk at Stanford as
Yeah.
well, right? I think my TLDR is that nobody really knows what's going to happen.
True.
So just brace yourself as a founder, operator, investor, somebody who's working in a company. You just have to brace yourself for massive change. I can feel it in my bones that we are actually sitting on a change which is probably much more bigger and much more redefining for our lives, not even our careers, for our lives that we all can
True.
actually imagine right now.
Absolutely agree. I think it's good that you gave this as a disclaimer in the beginning of our podcast. Everything that we're saying out of this, we're making the best of our abilities to join some doubts based on our own experiences, but it is super hard. Like exactly what you mentioned, I think it's going to be super hard to see exact. I mean, if you can predict that, then you're probably sitting on a gold mine.